Greetings, this is Johan from Into the Pit. I've decided to do a few videos on albums that I really like and that have sort of shaped my life and got me into heavier music. And today I would like to start with a very album that changed my life. I was born and grew up in Namibia. Now, to explain how it was back then, you have to think we were under the apartheid regime back then and sort of isolated from the rest of the world, and because of sanctions. And there was no or very little heavy music at our disposal. So it wasn't just a question of going into a record store and buying the latest Slayer. It just didn't exist. However, a few records or albums that were on major labels did make it into the music shops. Now, I was already listening to bands like Duran Duran and Billy Idol and various others, and sort of I always liked the heavier edged songs. I mean, like Billy Idol's Rebel Yell. So I noticed back then that I had an affinity for guitar-driven music. And then one fine day, there was actually, the same goes, by the way, with magazines. In the beginning, there was very little. Later on, we managed to get magazines like Rip, Metal Maniacs, Circus Magazine, Hit Parader, in the shops at filling stations. And to this day, I don't know how those magazines actually made it to Namibia. Because, like I said, there was no market really. We were a handful of people in a country with 2 million citizens. We were probably at max, spread across the country, maybe like 14 guys that were into heavier music. Now, back at this point, we didn't all know of each other because we were spread across the country, but in any case, there was the first magazine that was available was the German pop music magazine called Bravo, and they used to have a small metal section. And one day they actually had a centerfold, and whereas I previously looked for Duran Duran, Depeche Mode, and Billy Idol and the likes, suddenly I saw this band, these guys in makeup, and wow. It just looked like a circus, you know. It was colorful, long hair and everything, but the look just impressed me so much that I couldn't stop focusing on it and there was this mystique. I was wondering what kind of music do they make, and then also the name Mötley Crüe. Back then I didn't even know how to pronounce it because it had the dots on the O and the U. It was really, so for weeks I was like, oh my, mystified by this. And obviously you also saw photos of Ozzy Osbourne and bands like Keel, and it was so frustrating living there and not being able to go to a place or switch on the radio and there it is, you know. We just didn't have access to it at all. And one fine day I actually showed my mother this centerfold of Mötley Crüe, and I said, like, well, if you're going into town today, can you swing by the record store and try your luck and see if they have anything? Well, the afternoon progressed, and then I'd sort of forgotten about it almost, and my mum came back in the evening and said, like, well, I managed to find something. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm already thinking she probably brought me something else then, and saying that they don't have that. But no, she actually brought me the cassette of Mötley Crüe's Theatre of Pain. Now, I immediately went to my sound system and popped the cassette in. The cassette was actually wound. It must have been played somehow by someone or wound wrongly. So it actually started with Tonight We Need a Lover. So off the song kicks with like dun 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 dun. Wow! I was immediately. It was almost like instant. I was like, oh my god, this kills, this rocks. And as the song progressed, and wow, and then followed Fight for Your Rights and Rage Against the Rock and Louder Than Hell, City Boy Blues, Keep Your Eye on the Money. Yeah, awesome. That album really changed things for me big time. And that was the trigger that led me to come to the point of, wow, now I need to find more music like this. You know, this is it. And immediately I went around and asked my friends, you know, or even people at school. There was another guy walking around in school and he had the Aussie logo on his satchel, and he was the first I asked then, and he only had a few songs by Aussie on a tape somewhere. So you can see how it was. It was literally like we were tape trading with just bits and snippets and pieces and half of an album and things copied 20 times. And so, yeah, and I'll talk about this more in the rest of the videos as I introduce different albums. But yeah, I think the next bands that we sort of discovered there, or I discovered, were AC/DC. Twisted Sister played quite a role. Yeah, but it was incredibly hard to get hold of this stuff, and we almost waited for. We had some friends with connections to Germany who sort of flew there once every 2 years and actually went on an extensive shopping spree. So that's how albums later, like Merciful Fate, Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, Exciter, Motorhead, and various others actually made it to our shores, and then it sort of the albums, the record got copied. This guy knew that guy, this guy knew that guy, and then we sort of got our own copy of things, you know. And it would often happen that I would have, sort of, say, an album that nobody else had, and so we sort of switched back and forth. Always in the background, this knowing, damn, we wish we could get hold of more albums. I used to actually write a list and sort of tick off, okay, now I've got that, now I've got that. I mean, there were tons of bands, Rough Cut, Loudness, I mean, the stuff that you knew back then, the Metallica, also band names where you thought, wow, this must be quite heavy. Metal Church, for instance, or Malice, and yeah, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next videos. The important thing were also compilations. So if somebody got a compilation, it was obviously immediately there were 10 bands new to discover. So yeah, but quite interesting. To this day, I enjoy this album. I personally think it's one of Mötley Crüe's strongest. I love the sound on it. I think that this is the best sound they've ever had. I think the sound got really thin on Girls, 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 and yeah, it got a bit better again on Dr. Feelgood. But this, to me, they're sounding, it is, to this day, it sounds immensely heavy. I mean, turn it up, listen to it. And I think Tom Werman did a stellar job on this. I mean, I don't like every track on it. I mean, Smoking the Boys Room is sort of dead for me. Home Sweet Home I can't listen to anymore. But as for the rest of the up-tempo, more driving tracks, this is still one of my favorites to this day. Well, this is it. Off. Until next time, and I'll be introducing another album and another story. Cheers.